Magnus Carlsen, the world chess champion and arguably the greatest ever. More often than not, we see him in a fun and friendly mood, even dealing with his losses with a smile and a respectful handshake. But there are times where Magnus clearly shows that he is not a machine, a side that we often don't see. While it's rare to see someone get the better of Magnus, it's even rarer to see Magnus losing his calm. Don't worry, since we have got you guys covered. The first match we have for you is Magnus Carlsen vs Alexander Grishuk at the World Blitz Championship 2015. Blitz is a high-speed, high-stakes form of chess. Magnus would play white and started off with the queen's opening. Magnus seemed to be doing well in the match since he would have a bishop for a knight in a fairly open setup and was the first of the two to get a passed pawn. The only weakness in Magnus' otherwise splendid position was the one that mattered the most, king safety. This would soon cost him as his bishop would get pinned to the king, and after a trade of queens, Magnus realized that he was in a lost position. Even though he was frustrated, he tried his best to show respect and offer a handshake. But he could barely look into the eyes of Grishuk. He would get off the seat and clap off his frustration, going around in circles a couple of times. He signs the score sheet and throws the pen back on the table before he picks his coat up and leaves. Hope that pen isn't too costly. The next match we have is Carlsen vs Liu Shanghai in World Blitz Championship 2014. The game opened with the Paulsen variation of Vienna. In move 28, Carlsen would play the move qf7. What was that he blundered his queen, the next move being rook f1 pinning the queen. As soon as he realized this, he would abruptly drag his chair back and forth. It was as if he wanted to leave right then and there. This was clearly more than just adjusting his chair. It was his reaction that startled Shanghai more than the game itself. Magnus had an amazing queen sacrifice win over Sergei Karjakin in Rapid Chess 2016, and a year later, he would get a chance to try something cool once again. And this time, things weren't so different. Magnus was in a completely winning position, having an extra pawn in the otherwise drawn queen as queen endgame. You couldn't really blame Magnus. We would all get excited if we got a queen for ourselves. As soon as Magnus promoted his pawn to a queen, he would blunder in the very next move, leading to a draw in a winning position. Magnus would politely shake hands and pick his bottle up. He proceeds to say something rather impolite in Norwegian in frustration to himself as he walks away. Now we have Carlsen vs Vichy in the Rapid Chess 2014. Carlsen would go into the match with half a point advantage over Vichy with 3 matches left, and with Carlsen playing white, things couldn't get better for him. The match had the Queen's Gambit opening, and it resulted in an interesting endgame with Magnus' bishop and knight as Annan's rook. In the 33rd move, Magnus had the opportunity to draw the game with knight taking e6. But Magnus, as we all know, decided to go for the win only to play the same move 2 moves later. But this time, it was a blunder as Anand can play rook b6, which meant Carlsen would have to give up either his knight or his bishop. Magnus was clearly not happy as he nodded his head several times in regret. Frustrated with himself, Magnus would put not 1, but 2 hands on his forehead as if it wasn't enough as he looked down with disbelief. Anand, on the other hand, was quite glad about what happened. And now someone makes his return once again. No, it's not Carlsen. Well, not just Carlsen, we could see him against Alexander Grishuk once again. This time at the Sinquefield Cup 2015. Magnus would play white pieces against Grishuk. This match is quite important for Magnus as he is tied with Levin Aronian for the top place. The match saw the Sicilian and Magnus playing a line which he deployed in a victory 2 matches ago. But the plan didn't work so well as the boss of the endgames would get bossed around in the endgame. Magnus would resign after the 66th move. The match was so intense, there were just 7 seconds on Grishuk's clock. Magnus did not even shake hands as the two would be signing their score sheets. Magnus, with his arm on his head and his leg on the armrest, discusses the game in sheer frustration. Grishuk would later take his coat and leave while Magnus would stay there for a couple more seconds, staring at the board before he left. This just shows that no one is perfect, and even the best of the best have their own tantrums. Do you think Magnus was more frustrated at himself or at his opponent? Which one of these moments did you like the most? Let us know in the comments below.